Welcome to the History Bards podcast. We're glad you are joining us. And today we have the great privilege of featuring historical author Mari Anne Christie to the show. And many of you know Mari is one of the administrators and authors of the Shine with Paper Lanterns Writers Group. Mari has been a professional writer, editor, and designer in Denver, Colorado for more than 25 years. She holds a BA in writing, summa cum laude, and with distinction from the University of Colorado in Denver. Since 2009, she has published 4 historical romance novels and a book-length epic poem, and her novel, Blind Tribute, was among the category winners for the 2022 Historical Fiction Company Book Contest. Thank you so much for being here, Mari. How are you doing today?
I'm fine. I'm doing just fine today.
Great. Well, to start off with, since this interview is all about you, our listeners would love for you to tell us more about you and your books.
Okay. I say that I write second chances for scarred souls. So everybody that starts off in my book starts off with damage, right? So all of my characters start with damage. And then clearly they generally get damaged a little more along the way. My romance novels obviously have a happy ending. And so you can know for sure that, you're gonna get the happy ending at the end. Blind Tribute has a middling ending. It's not quite a happy ending, but it's not a sad ending either.
Yeah. And we won't give that away. But no. I will have to say and tell all the listeners out there, you must read this book. It is phenomenal. It was definitely up there in our awards last year, and just the amount of detail and the research that you put into this book, you could tell that it was like it was very passion filled.
Absolutely. Thank you. It took about 7 years to write the book.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of research that went into it, and a lot of background, a lot of background writing. So there was a lot of writing that never made it into the book, which I know is surprising because it's a super long book.
And it is. And I don't want that to scare listeners away, because it is well worth it. It is so well worth it. And I would love for you to tell our listeners more about the premise of Blind Tribute.
Blind Tribute is about a newspaper reporter during the Civil War. He is a centrist, so he's hoping for a peaceful resolution to the war. He is a northern journalist. He lives in the north, but he grew up in the south, and so he moves back to the south when the war starts so that he can cover the war. And he gets kind of a surprising reception when he gets there. And that's all I'm going to tell you.
That's all that everybody needs to know. Just know that you must go out and buy this book. It's definitely well worth it. Is there a particular, I know that there's a reason, but tell our listeners the reasons behind you writing the story.
The main character of the book is based on my great uncle, whose name was Percy Whaley. He ran a news organization called the Whaley-Eaton Business Service in the 1920s to the 1960s. It was actually an extremely well-known news organization in its time. It was the same sort of organization as Kiplinger. So they put out a newsletter, one of the first business newsletter in the United States. They were around for a very, very long time, but they have sort of fallen off of the radar. No one knows who they are anymore. And so I picked up that piece. I knew about him. And so I picked up that piece and I took it and I moved his life to the Civil War era. So his life was sort of early 20th century. But I moved him in time.
So why did you choose to do that?
He chose to do that.
Okay.
I started writing the book. And the image in my mind was my great uncle sitting in his desk writing something, and I had no idea what he was writing. Mm-hmm. And so I started typing what I thought he was writing, or what he was telling me he was writing. Mm-hmm. And it ended up being a Civil War story.
Oh, that's
So
amazing.
I will tell you forever that that's where he wanted to take it, not me.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And the characters sometimes do that, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So, so now we know the reasons why you chose this era. So, can you tell us a little bit more about the research that went into it?
Yeah, there was a lot of research went into it. First of all, it was really hard to find any information about my great great uncle and his company.
Hmm.
And so there was a lot of work went into that. And I ended up with collection of his work, and all sorts of cool stuff came out of that. There's now the University of South Carolina now has a special collection that's devoted to the Whaley Eaton service.
Oh, that's
So a lot of
amazing.
really cool stuff has happened as a
Yeah.
result of writing the book. But yeah, the research was pretty intense for that portion. I also did a lot of research into what was called the Bohemian Brigade, which was the newspaper reporters who traveled around covering the Civil War,
Mhm.
and really both sides. Wasn't just Yankees.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it was a very interesting topic area. There's not a lot written about it. It's called the golden age of the newspaper. It's where the point where the media in the US really took off. The Civil War was really the deciding line right there, where the media really took off and became the media that we have today.
Yes.
It was
Absolutely.
the money from the Civil War that did that.
Hmm. Oh, that's pretty
So,
amazing.
yeah.
So that's a little bit of an obscure kind of tidbit from your research, but was there anything else that you found that you were just like, what, you know, that you
Oh,
can share with us?
there were a lot of things like that. Trying to think of anything in particular. Um, One thing that was really interesting was that I picked the name Harry Wentworth, right, for my main character.
Yeah.
It turns out that my great great uncle's business partner was named Hank, and his son was named Harry.
Oh, how about that?
So yeah, it was really crazy, and I ended up meeting through Kiplinger, through the CEO of the Kiplinger company. I met my great great uncle's business partner's grandson,
Oh, how
who's
about
now in
that?
his 80s, and so we sort of, that's how the special collection came together. We worked together to make that happen.
Oh, well, congratulations on that. That's an amazing outcome for an
Yeah,
astounding book. Is
yeah,
it what,
thank you.
absolutely. So, do you have like a favorite line or passage that you'd like to share from the book?
I should have pulled something up and
That's
I
okay.
didn't.
That's okay.
My favorite line in the book is he's talking about President Johnson, who was Lincoln's vice president. And after he becomes president, when Lincoln is killed, and Harry says, "If Johnson were any more obsequious, I'd have to wear him as a tail." And I think
That's
that's my favorite line in the book.
that's definitely a favorite line to have for sure. So was there anything really and again, because I personally reviewed this book for historical fiction company, and I know a lot about it, so I know that there was some really difficult parts in the book. So what did you find most difficult about writing this story?
The most difficult part was the structure of the book. I know
Yes.
that's not the sexy answer,
No, no, but
um,
it's
but I rewrote the book top to bottom 3 times.
mm,
The last time I rewrote it, I printed out an outline of the book and literally cut each chapter into a strip
uh-huh.
and put them on my wall. And I moved them around on my wall. Three walls of my office were covered in these little strips of paper because it's a long book. And I sit there and move stuff around until I had the structure I wanted. And from reading it, it's not a typical structure. The
Right.
structure of it is done differently. It's not this typical 3-act hero's journey sort of book.
Mhm.
And so that was the most difficult piece, was putting all the pieces together in the right order.
Yeah. And I think that's what makes your book so unique is is doing it that way, and it creates your own unique voice. And I think that was one of the things that we recognized when we were reviewing the book, and the reason why it placed like it did last year. Very unique. And, you know, sometimes historical fiction readers get in this, you know, the same book after one after the other, after the other, after the other. And so then when you find someone who writes so unique like you did, it just really stands out. So
Well, thank you.
thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that, and thank you for being able to do it in that way, because it was brilliant. It was really brilliant.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your
Absolutely.
kind words.
Absolutely. So let's see. So, you know, we really like to hear about an author's like early journey as, you know, starting out in writing. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey, and maybe something that really stood out to you that you read, or maybe some advice that you were given along the way?
Yeah, you know, my dad taught me to read on the New York Times crossword puzzle when I was younger than 3. And so I was really reading and writing extremely young. And I remember trying to write a book probably when I was like 5 or 6. And, you know, taking construction paper and glitter and glue and you know, scribbling all over things. And my mom put it together with little, you know, clips and made it into look like a book. So yeah, so I've been doing that for a very, very long time. I was a poet when I was younger. When I was in high school, I was a poet and did a lot of poetry readings and that sort of thing. So just I guess I've been writing my whole life. I can't really find a, you know, a point at which I started writing. I've been writing forever. Advice I've been given along the way. I think the best advice I've ever been given, again, it's not sexy. A chapter is as long as it is long. Meaning, don't sit there and worry about, is my chapter long enough? Is it too short? Is it too long? Oh my God, this chapter is shorter than the last chapter.
Yeah.
Chapters are as long as they are long. In my work in progress, I have a chapter that is literally 2 lines.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. Oh, now we're all really, really intrigued. Because I've come across books where the, you know, the chapter may be just a page, but 2 lines. Oh,
2 lines. Yeah.
well, so can you tell us a little bit about your work in progress?
Yeah, I'm actually working on a series called the Lions Club series. And the first book is called The Cub. And it's a book about 3 children that grow up on the same street in Brooklyn, New York at the turn of the century. Well, the turn of the last century, I should say. We've had another one since then.
Yes, that's right. Oh, well, that's great. Well, we're and do you have kind of like a timeline when those might be?
I do not have a timeline,
That's all
sadly.
right. That's okay.
I am working away at them.
Well, you're going to have a lot of people like anxiously awaiting to read that 2-line chapter.
Well, that's nice to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. So lots of times we like to ask authors, do you have like a favorite saying or quote that you like to live by? It kind of tells the listeners a little bit about you as an author.
You know, I actually really don't.
Oh, that's okay.
I just sort of live my life. I don't have big philosophies. I don't have you know, words I live by, anything like that. I just sort of live my life. I'm kind of a boring little soul.
No, you're not. Believe me, everybody, once you read Blind Tribute, you will not believe this about her.
Okay, well, Blind Tribute is not boring.
No, it's not in the least bit. It is not boring in the least bit. So that's the reason why I'm saying you won't, to read that, you will not believe that about the author, that you're boring at all.
And yet it's true.
Well, we've talked before on the phone, and I don't believe that about you.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
So, so now you've told us a little bit about what's coming out, and you won't give everybody a timeline about the new books and everything. But do you have anything that you'd like the listeners to know, maybe about the Shine with Paper Lanterns group?
Yeah, actually, I am a member of the Paper Lantern Writers, and we are a group of 15 authors, historical fiction authors, that work together to promote our books. We have the Shine with Paper Lantern Writers group on Facebook, which is our sort of central place to hang out. Yeah, there's some really, the Paper Lantern Writers, paperlanternwriters.com. You can find some really good books. There we have some first chapter books up on our website for free, so you can read the first chapters of some of our
Great.
books. And so yeah, it's a very cool little group, and some amazing authors.
Yeah, it really is. And I've really enjoyed seeing a lot of the comments and posts in that group. So definitely go out and check that out. If you're next time you're on Facebook, check out Shine with Paper Lanterns group.
Mhm.
And so we really appreciate you being on the show today, Mary. And we look forward to those new books coming up. And again, for everybody listening, please go out and get Blind Tribute by Mari Anne Christie. And it's well worth the read. We look so forward to your upcoming books, and thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. For all the fans listening in, you can learn more about Mary and her books at mariannechristie.com, and you can find the link and more information on today's episode description. As always, we thank everyone for listening, and please don't forget to subscribe. New episodes will be coming out every week, and our next episode features historical author Tess Thompson. This is DK Marley with Mari Anne Christie with the History Bards podcast. Keep making history and keep listening.